Alexis, a consultant here at Valiantys. In this video, I'm going to go over the form feature in Jira Service Management. Forms in Jira Service Management are the crucial way to gather the proper information from your customers. By gathering all the information from your customers on submission, your agents can more effectively and efficiently work on tickets. To start, we're going to go over a common mix-up. In this video, while we're going over the forms feature, which has also been known as proforma, and even also commonly referred to as dynamic forms due to the customization options you can perform, there is a feature called request forms. Both of these are forms in their own way, but they do contain differences. Let's dive into those. So, we have forms versus request forms. Both of these are visible at submission. With the forms, as long as you attach it directly to the request type, it will be visible directly at submission. On the request form, these fields are automatically put into the request type itself, so they're going to always display right there. By default, in the request form, it does put summary and description automatically. Note that summary must be there if you don't use a dynamic form, and that is because the summary field is always required for an issue. It is the only field that you cannot take away. So by default, you're going to have at least summary in there. If you do not put summary in your form, meaning you don't link a field to the system field of summary, then that field in the request form of summary is going to stay there. Now we have conditional logic. Forms allow for conditional logic. They use what is called sections, which we will go over, those customization options. And those allow for, if a field above is selected for a certain option, then display the following fields. You can enter in as many fields as you want in that section. It just depends on making sure that you add that section at the end of all those fields to either return to all visible fields, meaning any field selected, those options are all going to appear, or if you want to start a brand new section with separate conditional logic, then you can get into that. Request forms have no conditional logic. There is no if this, show this. All the fields you're using are either going to be custom fields or system fields, and they are all thrown directly right on the issue view. And on the portal view, they're all thrown right there. Editable after creation. A form is editable after creation. You can have the agent re-trigger to open it. Therefore, all those fields in that form can be changed and then saved and then resubmitted. Request forms, you can, but it's not the traditional sense when we're saying editable after creation. Because the request form is just made of fields and there's no conditional logic or anything, you can technically edit those fields after submission, but you're not editing the form itself that you filled out on submission. You're just straight editing fields. We'll go over in forms that you don't have to have fields that are custom linked. They can just be a field with no data value linked to them. So therefore, when you're editing those fields, you can change all those. Those types of fields also will not be modifiable on the issue view. Those fields can only be changed by reopening that form. Field formatting and layout. We have yes for request forms, and I only say there is field formatting, but it is very, very limited. When we say formatting, what you can do is for fields that you drag over into the request form, you can make it a required field, meaning in order to submit, it must be filled out. Or you can set it to have a default name and description. So instead of just displaying the name summary to your customer on the portal, you can change what that label should be to them. So instead of saying summary, you could say, please summarize your issue, and then you can even add a description for that field. You can also click to set a preset value for some fields. So for instance, say if you're doing an onboarding request, where instead of letting someone display, please summarize what you're submitting, and you're going to have several different variants of onboard this person is starting on X date. In a queue, that can get very overwhelming, so what you can do is click to set a preset value, simply just put in onboard employee, and what that'll do is it'll set the summary value by default, and then it will hide that field from the request type. Therefore, that's going to be always what the summary is set to. So in request forms, you can do that, but that's about as limited for formatting as you can go. We'll get into for forms, but you can do a wide variety of things, not only with just conditional logic, but with the type of rich text editing you have, the type of fields you can use. It has a lot of formatting and layout options. Our final comparison is easily shareable to other issues. Remember how I said above that the request form isn't necessarily a form, it's just a collection of fields that once submitted, they no longer contain, it's not a form, it's just fields on the issue view. So while each field is probably going to be on other request types, you can't share that direct form. However, with forms, you can. You can either attach forms directly to a request type to appear on submission, or even after a issue is submitted, you can attach these forms. It's very common that people use this for internal. Forms are not just for users on the portal to submit. They are also for gathering additional information depending on maybe a general request, or they can be used for internal checklists. So for onboarding, your IT team has a checklist of items they go through, whether that's on provisioning the equipment, creating a badge, making sure they have a desk assigned. All of those are a checklist. You can create checklists, add them in the form, and you can make them only an internal view. So the customer will not see it, but it's on the agent view, and it's on them to edit continuously and check mark those things. So forms have a very wide variety. It's not just for your customers. So with that, now that we have our understanding of the differences between forms and request form, let's go ahead and get into what forms are and what they can do. My instance is in the new UI. This is being pushed out in the coming weeks, so just know that what my screen looks like now may not look like what yours does with the old navigation, but soon this will. So to get to your forms, you have to go to Project Settings. To get in the project settings on the new UI, you're going to click these three dots next to your project name and click Project Settings. If you're in the old UI, when you're in the project, it's going to be down on the very last option on that left-hand side. It's just going to say Project Settings. Once you go ahead and click that, we're going to be left with the project menu bar. What you're going to probably come into and see is this collapse view. Click on Request Management, and then under Request Management, click on Forms. And now we are at our Form Center. And with forms, you can either create your own ones, meaning you start from scratch, or you can click where it says Create Form, and then Create from Template. Just like with creating a project, Atlassian does give you a wide variety of forms that are already pre-built with just pre-populated fields that you can either use as is, or you can modify for your specific needs. And they also separate them by process. So you have for customer service, design, HR, facilities. You can come into IT and you can see that they have already started a list of fields to use. So if we wanted to do a new user account, we'll click Select. And then we're going to see the template of fields of what that template has. So now we come in here and we can see it pasted in all those fields, including some layout options and fields, which we will go into. But just note that Atlassian does come with templates that you can use and modify right out of the box. Now we're going to go and we are going to look at all of the fields and formatting options that forms have to offer. So coming right off the bat to start with, this title right here, that this is what is your form title. You can know what form this is to attach it directly to an issue. Every form must have a name. So now we're going to get into what can forms do. Forms have text formatting, so the very common types of formatting, you have bold, italicized, underline, strike through, code, subscript, and super subscript. You have text alignment, so you have all the way to the left, in the center, or to the right. You do have your nice pretty colors. Black is the classic color that's going to be used, but you also do have blue, teal, green, orange, red, and purple. And coming up to the colors, that's not just all the colors. There are more, so you have lighter versions. So for instance, you have orange, but also yellow is there as well. So you have a wide variety of colors, which you can also apply the formatting for the text up top. So you could make this teal bold if you wanted. So it allows for a lot of just formatting if you want to call something out with make sure you hit submit. You can definitely put that in underline, bold, and put it red. Next you have your list. The most two common that people use is bullet points and numbered. This is what the list options that Jira Service Management allows you to do. You have links. So with these links, you can paste a link, and what's going to do in Forms, it's going to create that hyperlink. But not only is it just going to paste that link, you have the option to then change what it is the display name on the form is going to be. So rather than just having it say youtube.com/Valiantys group, you can put a display text name to it. That way it makes it more readable as to what it is. So rather than just seeing a bunch of letters and numbers, boom, this is what this link is. You have table options, so this includes being able to name your rows, your columns, and your comparisons. You can make this column pretty wide and pretty long. We have layouts, so you can do the layout in terms of a 3-section or a 2-section. Again, you still can apply any of the formatting options we listed above, so any of those text formatting, the table, the links, all that you can still apply in these layouts, and the layouts don't apply to the entire form. So if you just wanted an option where you just wanted to list certain options here, you could do that and then you could end it. You don't have to have the entire form within that layout if you don't want to. Coming down to additional options, we have code snippet boxes. So if you are in development and this is something where please make sure your code is formatted in the following way, or make sure your code has this. Instead of just putting it out in a line, which sometimes either doesn't look good for the formatting, you can put it in the specific code box. And within it, it does allow you to select the language that your code is in. You have info panels, which do have the option of info, note, success, warning, and error. Each of these do contain their own color. So that way it's a quick color graphic to say for info, say the help desk is only open Monday through Friday on the general request, just to let people know that if you're submitting this right now, just note that these are the working hours. If you're submitting them outside of working hours, it might take a little bit longer to get back. You can also do indents for quotes, so if you have a certain quote, you can put that here in this little line that represents that it's a quote. You'll see here that within this form, you'll see these sections, these little line breaks. If you type in 3 dashes and then do a space or an enter, it's going to give you this line divider. So it's nice to be able to separate your information so it's not all just fields and text. It gives it a little bit of organization and separation. You do have these display statuses where they're simply just little boxes and then you have a color code to them. Note that they are all caps, so they will type like this even if you're typing it in lowercase. They do go in caps. Now we're coming down to the text fields, but before we get into that, all those formatting that I showed above, those are all right here. Along with here, you also have those header options, so you have normal text, and the lines you see here that I've been breaking out those sections, those are in a heading too, so you can definitely go through all of those. The 3 dots right here, this is just those additional text formatting that I mentioned, and everything else is all right here. You'll be able to click on all these and immediately go in and start customizing that. For our text fields, all of these down here are going to be under Add Fields. So we're just going to go through each of the options that are right here. You have short text. This is more of just a quick, simple enter in this text. And with all these fields, you do have the option right here that says linked Jira field. What this does is allows you to set this field to link to a custom field. So for long text, I could link this to summary. And now what's going to happen is that when someone on the form fills out long text and they hit submit, it's going to take the information they put in that field and it's going to put it in the summary field. This is very good for when you want to ask questions and use the form where you don't just want to display what the name of the field is. You just don't want to say summary. you can have a nice question to it, and then it's going to feed your information to a specific field that's going to help your agents. Long text is more so for a long sentence, where rather than a short text is yes or no. Long text has a wide range for text. Paragraph is your standard big paragraph field. It does have some text formatting such as bold, italicized, color, and I believe it also has the ability for the text alignment. Email, this is going to look for a email formatting, so you won't be able just to enter in the word Valiantys. When you submit, it's going to say this needs to be in the proper formatting, so it needs to have that @domain.com org, that email address. It has to have that ending. This is very similar with URL, where it has to recognize the formatting of a proper web link, otherwise it will not let you submit. And coming down on these, you do have the option to add a description. That's totally optional. Even the display name is optional, which you'll see when we get to attachments, where rather than just listing it as attachment when we know it's an attachment, then you can just clear the field and you don't have to worry about displaying anything. I would not advise this for standard fields, but rather just for attachment fields, where it shows that field is an attachment, so it's more of self-explanatory. For some of these choice fields down here we'll get into, you can add a default response, where if it's a optional field where someone doesn't need to fill it out if it doesn't apply to them, then it can just keep a default response. That way it can still be filled out. And then you also do have the ability to mark it as validation with response required, which means that in order to submit this issue, you have to submit a response. You can select the minimum amount of characters for that answer in the field. You can also select the maximum amount. This field key right here, this is used not only to call out a field's value in exports, but you can also utilize this field key in automation. Usually when you have a field, unless it's custom linked, you won't be able to call that out in, say, Jira for automation. With using the field key, you are actually able to call out this key not only by starting with the forms ID, but then you get to this field key. So if you need a field and you need based off of that response to do something, if you don't need it as a custom field, meaning you don't need to fully report on it, you just want it to be able to assign it to somebody, you can use the field key and do that. Coming down to our choice field, you have the option of radio button, checkbox, drop-down, multi-select drop-down, and cascading drop-down. When it comes to these checkbox ones, you can also set the minimum number that they can check off and the maximum. So even if it's a checkbox, which usually indicates you can check off more than one, you can limit to how many you want them to be able to check off. With radio button and checkbox, it does have the option built in for other, so as you create this field, rather than typing in the option other and then adding a conditional section to say please specify, it will have a button option that says add other, which when it's selected, defaultly it tells them to enter in that option. Cascading dropdown is when, based off of the selection of the first field, it's going to then display specific options of the next field. So for parent option 1, we are going to see the child option A. For 2, we're going to see B. And for 3, we're going to see C. Coming down to date, and time fields, you have date and time, and time. Note that there is a custom field you can make that is date and time, and you can link to this, which is very commonly used for offboarding to select not only the day to do it, but the time. Note that if you set this as a custom field and you go to display it, this is going to translate to the time and date of the site's settings. So while you may be in Eastern Standard Time, and what time you are selecting is Eastern Standard, it may convert this to a different time zone if that's not what the site is. So if the site is in Central Time, you are in Eastern, it will modify the time when you go to use it in automation and say put it in the summary. So keep in mind that sometimes with these you have to add additional conversions within automation for Jira, or you have to go about a different round and instead of using this custom field, you just spit out with the field key the exact result they put and even add a value for a field below and say, what is your time zone, and then paste that in. You have a number field, similar to how the URL in the email worked. This validates against a number, so you can't enter in any letters in the number field. It's just going to be number. User fields, you can do a single user or a multi-user. So if you want to say the user can select who the reporter is going to be or who the approvers are going to be, they can use this field and select users to be able to put in those fields. Coming down our last options, we have asset objects. So if you utilize assets, you can create custom fields for those to be able to select options from your schemas. And then down here where I mentioned about the attachment, since the attachment field says attachments will be uploaded here, you don't necessarily have to put a name for this attachment since it calls out that field already. Coming down to our conditional sections. So I have here in this section to say, conditionally, when in the asset objects, if the following is selected, which is either the iPhone 16 Pro or the Pro Max, it's going to show this info panel and it's going to say, good choice. If any of the Samsung is selected, which is going to be either the Galaxy Z Flip or the Galaxy Z Fold, it's going to say, careful folding your phone. At the end of your sections, make sure you always end it with another section to return to always visible fields. If you don't do this, and what happens is you're adding more fields that you want to display, and you forget this section, it's only going to show in those conditional sections, so just make sure to close those off. Your best practice is when you're using sections, make sure you label them. You can get these forms to be very complex, where you can have a lot of options and a lot of sections. If you don't label them and you have some sections that aren't working as they should, it becomes a little difficult to troubleshoot those to figure out in what section did you maybe select the wrong option or did you select the wrong field. In these sections, you can't say if option is not selected. They go by conditionally when the field is any of. So just note that you can't do is not one of, it's is any of. And that is the end of the fields that you can put in here. Just some other small notes, you can lock down and restrict who can view forms. You can do this by either individual usernames or groups. Coming in here, you have translate. So if you have more than one language in your site and you set up the ability to have translations, then you can make sure that you can translate this form into the languages that you have set in your project. Preview allows you to see the form that you built. You can come in and see this. So when you have a lot of conditional sections, you can test those out. So for example, if we scroll down, we can see here that I put conditions to either say good choice or careful folding your phone. Right now, we don't see these. So if I were to select Google, I didn't have any options selected for Google, therefore nothing's going to appear. But if I come in here and I select Apple, which one of these is the iPhone 16 Pro, oop, that one's the 15. There we go, so we see we have the Pro Max. But you can see here we have good choice. If I come in here and select any of the Samsungs, we're going to see here, careful folding your phone. Coming into settings, this is where you can attach these forms directly to a request type. That way they will be attached upon submission. You can create a shareable link, so this is more so for Confluence pages or agents who have access to the agent view. When you click on this, you'll be able to get this exact form in the agent view and fill it out. That way there's any conditional sections can be done. That way instead of going to the portal, you can come directly and just fill out the form here. And then you do have some preferences, such as keeping this form open for edits even after it's submitted. You can make it attach a PDF version of the form each time it's resubmitted. That way you don't lose any data of what was selected each time it's submitted. It just gives you a copy each time. You can lock this form once it's submitted and only allow project admins to reopen it, so that way people aren't just opening up these forms and modifying at will. And you can also show this form as recommended when selecting from a list of existing forms. So now that we went over forms, let's go see how it looks. So with all these forms, what I have is this form right here that is for general help, and we can see that on their request type we can see it is linked to get IT help for submission. And just to go through what this one looks like, it's very simple. I have how can we help and please provide additional information. How can we help is linked to summary. Please provide additional information is linked to description. So when I go to this form on the portal and I submit, the information I put in those two fields should go in the issue view of those two linked fields. So let's go ahead and let's go to the portal to submit those. So in the portal, we're going to go to that request type I set up, which is get IT help. And we can see here, the attachment is on the request form, therefore that's why it's displaying and it's showing above the form. You can utilize both the request form and forms within the same request type. Just know that you cannot put the request form fields after the forms. So any fields in the request form are going to appear above. So we're going to say how can we help? What is the Wi-Fi password? And then providing additional information. This is my first time in the office. I'll go ahead and hit send. And now what we're going to get here is my issue's been submitted. And when it comes to the portal view, you will also be able to see whether if it was a form or if it was the request form, because the forms here will actually display the name of the form to the users. So the users will only see this name after it's submitted. They're not going to see the form name before. So we can see here that the form name is general help and they filled it out with the submitted, and we can see the information they provided. If we go ahead and go into the issue view, we are going to see here that I put in here what is the Wi-Fi password for my summary, and the description I put in this is my first time in the office, which we can match up from the form. If I want to reopen this form, I just can click on these three dots and click open for customer edits, open for edits, and now the customer can modify it. If I only wanted it internal to edit, I can hit make form internal. This will hide it from the portal, therefore they cannot see it, and then the agent, if they wanted to make changes, they could. Clicking edit form allows you as the agent to also edit it and then hit save. And as well as you can download this in a PDF or in an Excel format. Let's say that on this form, the information they gave me, it allows me to say, hey, I have another form that I need this information from. By clicking on add form, this is where any form in the project that has been created, we can add additionally onto the issue. That way we have a nice organized set of information, and rather than typing out each question that we need them to answer, we can simply just throw that form on there, hit add. By default, it does put these forms in the internal view only, so you just have to make sure that you click on the three dots to hit make form external, and you'll always be able to see if it's internal or external. Just like with internal comments, it's highlighted in yellow and even has a status right here that says internal. So if I go and hit make form external, now we can see here it's white, it says open for edits, and now it can be modified on the customer portal. And that is your deep dive on forms in Jira Service Management. Understanding how you can use forms to leverage information from your customers can be a game changer for your agents' working tickets. Go ahead and mess with forms in your site and see how these features can transform your JSM project. Thanks for watching.